Who should be the American soccer pope? A summer off for Christian Pulisic? And just how big is the gap between Major League Soccer and USL? That and much more on Friday's Morning Kick-Around. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kick-Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favoriteest country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr, up from the lower leagues. He's Jason Davis, meeting in the middle, covering it all in American soccer. How you doing, sir?
I'm ready to go. I'm happy for this Friday episode. I'm rocking my brand new New Mexico United jersey sent to us by our man Ron Patel. See Meow Wolf right there. Look at that. I'm looking sharp, and I appreciate Ron hooking us up.
And I wanted to make our friend, our member, YouTube channel member happy. L-Train, Luke Zagorski in the chat. He gave me this. He's been trying to convince me to become a Crew fan, so I'd rock that on a Friday.
That seems like a tough sell. That seems like a tough. I mean, they're a very good soccer team, Robert, but I don't know. Aren't you? You're a Detroit guy. You got some Chicago in you, and but to go down to Columbus, that feels like quite a step, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, it's taking me some convincing. My respect level is huge. Save the Crew, and just how good they've been in the last few years. I definitely have a soft spot for them. And when we were in Cleveland, seeing them take on Inter Miami, definitely was rooting more so for those in yellow than the ones in pink. But that's the kits. And I'm glad we didn't wear our New Mexicos at the same time. I'm glad we were on the telekinetic level and didn't manage to do that. And
it is a very yellow show. And as also you can see that Ron sent me a scarf because I hung that up for right now, right there above my head. It looks like almost like I have like a scarf halo thing happening, kind of. Anyway,
it's a very devout episode we have cooking here. We're going to get into the best American candidate for the soccer pope. We're going to talk about Christian Pulisic. Should he just chill out this summer? And much, much more. I mentioned Luke, member of the Morning Kick-Around membership. And if you haven't done that already, become a subscriber and then take it a step further and get a membership. What are some of the benefits to becoming a member, Jason?
Well, you get access to our Discord, which is growing, as people join up and some conversations in there. We actually, a new idea just happened in the Discord yesterday. And I am a bit of a procrastinator. Not going to lie. I still got to get some stuff together. I just came back from vacation. My in-laws are in town until tomorrow. Anyway, once I get my focus back, I'm going to complete my inventory on all my soccer stuff, which now apparently has New Mexico United scarf. Jerseys are still a questionable item to be added to my list of inventory, only because what I want that list to represent is things I can give away to our members, to our supporters, to the MK Ultras. Shout out to you. That's what we want to do. We want to take some of this collected ephemera from my soccer history and pass it along to you. And what we determined is that there are other people who have soccer things, and they might also want to send those soccer things to other people. It was offered to me, hey, maybe I want to send you something. I was like, oh, soccer swap meet. Soccer stuff swap meet might be happening with the MK Ultras. I'm very excited about this idea, Rob.
We could take it to a whole nother level of like media level, almost do like an MTV Cribs, like, yo, this is my soccer stash. Like, over here, I got all the throwbacks. Over here, I got the platinum.
Wait a second. Why is that your impression of somebody doing an MTV Cribs? Why specifically that one? That was an odd choice.
That was like of the era when MTV Cribs, there was many celebrities and entertainers who spoke in that fashion.
Okay.
Still one of my favorite episodes of that is Redman, when he had he showed everyone around his crappy apartment. That was a work, by the way. I know I have it on good authority that Redman, maybe it wasn't Redman, maybe it was ODB who did a whole bit about going and picking up a check from the government. that I don't even know if that was Cribs related, but an all-time gag for sure. He definitely I think that was cited in Congress and stuff like that. That definitely got the goat of some folks.
All I know is that if you do an MTV Cribs, you have to have a Scarface poster somewhere, properly framed Scarface poster somewhere. That's the rule.
The age of Scarface. And you know what Scarface did? Like us, set goals. He was trying to aim to the top we crashed through our 2,000 subscriber goal. We're going towards 5,000, and we're even going to do a membership drive. So there's tools now that we're getting more subscribers. There's tools in YouTube to kind of drive and get everyone kind of like to grow the MK Ultras. And I think we've set a goal of what, 10 new members?
That we are setting a goal of 10 new members for some extra content. Today we got the super chat goal going on, and we are planning on extra time if we get some super chats. So if we can meet that goal, which is a relatively modest goal, then we will do an extra segment today on some things we messed up. We've got some corrections maybe to make, which I think should be fascinating.
All right, before we get into our segments, I'll remind you one more time, hit the subscribe button, become a member, find us on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We can also meet you over at Ko-Fi or coffee.com/morningkickaround. There is a subscription model there as well. And then you can find us podcast format. Search Morning Kickaround on your favorite audio platform. You ready for some long balls?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, kick it. Long ball here on Friday morning. It is May 9th. The Open Cup round of 32 happened on Wednesday night, and USL took on Major League Soccer in about 10 or 12 matchups, and not so many USL teams came out on top. Just the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, I believe, coming out of the round in those USL versus MLS matchups. So with the lopsided results, does that really demonstrate the gap between Major League Soccer and USL?
No, it does not. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a gap. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of gap. Obviously, there is some sort of gap, and it's not based on, oh, that's a first division and that's a second division or a third division in the case of League One. It's about money, stupid. Like, it's about how much money these teams are spending on their players and how much salary they're paying out. And MLS pays higher salaries. That is a fact. That is provable. There's going to be a talent gap because of that. You're attracting better players with more money. But in terms of this debate as to how close the gap might be, I don't know that this round of 32 in this particular US Open Cup proves much of anything when it comes to this tournament. Because, Rob, this is a sport that will throw up surprising results. This is a sport that is very hard to predict. One moment, I mean, we've seen too many times a team with quote-unquote lesser talent put 9 or 10 men behind the ball, get one counterattacking opportunity or one set piece, and win 1-0. And we even have a phrase for that. We call that a smash and grab. That stuff happens. The fact that it didn't happen in this tournament this year doesn't really prove anything about where USL and MLS are. I mean, again, okay, let's bring in Angus. Angus is one of our members. Shout out to Angus and MK Ultra. I was at the St. Louis versus Union Omaha match. It was easy to spot the talent gap. Again, I think there is a gap, and there will be better teams. I mean, first of all, that's a League One team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's Union Omaha's a League One team. They're not even a second division team in terms of their spending. They're a League One team in terms of their spending. So that gap, probably easy to spot for Angus. I mean, I guess, again, you kind of hope for, if you're a lover of this tournament and a lover of Cinderella stories and the surprise and the underdog and all of that, you're hoping for an upset, one or two more cup sets. Rob, are we saying that word? Is that our word? Are we doing that word?
Yeah, we can do that word. That's fair enough. I mean, a USL team beating MLS team is a huge deal in its own right. I know when locally, when Detroit City FC beat Columbus Crew, granted it wasn't like a full strength Columbus Crew team, but it was a big deal. That it definitely goes down in like the Mount Rushmore of moments in Detroit soccer. And I said it on Wednesday. I really wish that the lower league team got to host these games. It would have meant a lot more to Detroit to host the Chicago Fire than for people to go to Bridgeview for a Chicago Fire Open Cup
Absolutely.
game.
I would agree with that. I don't, yeah. I mean, sometimes this is about venues and availability and some of the things boxes you have to check to be able to host these games. I would like to see it become policy that the lower division team hosts the higher division team. You already know as an MLS side, you have an advantage. It comes down to who you pick to play, right? Again, NYCFC maybe got a lesson because they went to Pittsburgh and didn't play their best guys and end up losing. For everybody else, I mean, you watch Chicago. What Chicago chose to do against Detroit City was put out basically a full strength lineup because Greg Berhalter wasn't messing around, and Chicago has a history of caring about this tournament. And there will be a mix of those approaches. So what I'm saying is this is kind of threading the needle. Is there a gap between MLS and USL teams? Absolutely there is. Absolutely there is. Don't say there isn't. That's ridiculous. But do these results prove that it's a massive gap or that it's growing or that there's no way USL teams will ever beat MLS teams again outside of Pittsburgh in the US Open Cup? No, it doesn't prove that at all.
Yeah, it just results in the moment because, I mean, Sacramento made the final last year, the year before, as a USL championship side. And just to review the score, Pittsburgh Riverhounds got a 1-0 victory over New York City FC. New York City FC getting a red card in that. But some of the results, Charlotte, it was a tight one with North Carolina. They brought on some of their first teamers and took over and won 4-1. DC United beat Charleston. Nashville 1-0 over the Chattanooga Red Wolves, who, I'd say one of the moments of the tournament was the Chattanooga Derby. I think that was probably the moment that'll capture the most memories.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that happened. Right. I'm glad that we got that game. Again, remember, not every MLS team is participating with their first team squad. So, for example, there's no Seattle Sounders. It was Tacoma Defiance, and then they get knocked off, and you're like, oh, a lower division team is out. But again, in a different year, Seattle's in this tournament. And I would prefer that all the MLS teams participate. I'm still not on board with the idea that MLS gets to pick and choose whether it's part of this tournament. You're a US based professional soccer club. You should be playing. You should be required to put your first team in the US Open Cup, period, end of story.
End of story. Moving on to long ball number 2 here on Friday. Should Christian Pulisic take the summer off from the men's national team and put his feet up and rest his body for the Gold Cup this summer? In The Athletic, Greg O'Keefe writes, and he proposes what is the gain in the short term. Pulisic playing with the team. Obviously, the team needs to galvanize, but at the same time, Pulisic has played a whole lot of ball, and we want him refreshed for his Serie A and in the World Cup in 2026.
No, he should not take off from the U.S. men's national team. I'm not going to pretend like I have an idea of what Mauricio Pochettino is going to do with this squad, but Rob, have results been good enough? Has the progress been obvious enough? Has there been enough confidence built 1 year out from a World Cup for the U.S. men's national team to mess around at all this summer with the tournament that it has in front of it, especially considering that there will be players who won't be there because of club obligations, because Gianni Infantino's throwing a weird, awkward Club World Cup party here. Like we don't have the benefit here of taking it like, oh, well, let's give Christian the summer off. We're going to be fine next year. I need to see something that looks like a well-oiled machine if I'm going to have any confidence that Pochettino's the right guy for this team next year. And they're not going to fire him. They're paying him a lot of money. It's only a year away. It would be ridiculous to do so. He needs to have all the tools that are available to him to be able to figure this out this summer.
I would love that the situation allowed him to take the luxury of taking the Gold Cup off and resting, but the situation, just as you outlined, doesn't call for it. Like that I think taking it off is a luxury. But pardon my French, but that the team really has to shovel some shit right now and really get themselves out of a mess. And your body probably needs the rest, Christian, but I think you got to get the team galvanized, and you got to get some sort of cohesion and really just find the team. What is the team that's going to go into the World Cup? Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there will always be players missing. I mean, generally speaking, sometimes the stars align and you have all of your best players available for a major tournament. But that usually doesn't happen, right? There's always one or two guys who are dealing with something and you have questions about that. And let's remember that when we get to the World Cup next year, Christian Pulisic and all of these European-based players are going to be coming off their European season, right? I'm not saying like you need to get used to it because they probably are for the most part, but I don't know this idea. Like I guess this comes down to Rob whether you believe Christian Pulisic's energy levels in 2026 will be impacted by playing in a tournament, which admittedly isn't a prestigious tournament. I mean, we should care about it because it's our continental championship, but it's not the most prestigious tournament for a European-based player at a club like AC Milan. But do you believe that Christian Pulisic will be less energetic and be less ready to play on the big stage in the World Cup in America next year if he plays in the Gold Cup this summer?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, bodies need rest, right? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's played a lot of minutes for Milan, and they played in the Copa America last year, so he hasn't had a great deal of time off. And I think that the body needs recovery. And when you see like when there's been strikes or lockouts in professional American sports, so when those long 80 game NBA NHL seasons are those half seasons actually end up being some of the most exciting play. And I think maybe that time off doesn't benefit all the way after the end of a Serie A season, but it would certainly benefit them going into Milan in the fall to take the time off. But I just don't think that the team can afford to be playing like a B team in the Gold Cup and then having to figure out what their A team is again next year.
We have talked about. And by the way, Jedi Robinson is also part of this conversation because of the number of minutes he played for Fulham this season.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's played a ton.
He's played a ton. He played basically every minute he could. I mean, there were a couple of cup matches where Jedi wasn't in the lineup for Silva, but this has been talked about a lot. And I know maybe you could overdo it with the we're running out of time panic. Right there, you could do. I mean, it's obviously possible that this is all too much focus on the clock running down on the American World Cup, but that doesn't mean that it's not right. It doesn't mean that there aren't so few windows before the U.S. hits the field in the World Cup next year, and maybe we're maybe we're projecting here a bit as American soccer fans, but it's obviously very important that the U.S. men's national team have a good showing in an American World Cup to help the growth of the game, to help the game move forward. If the goal is, right, I want to make sure that everybody, we're thinking about ourselves here and what our motivations are. Some people out there, they just want to see their club team win a title, win a trophy, whatever. Some people just want to enjoy the game and don't even really care that much about whether soccer in America explodes to the level that Stephen A. Smith is talking about it on a regular basis. I mean, not all of us need that, right? Some of us just want to enjoy the game and can sort of set it into its little corner. It's over there on that shelf, right? American football and baseball and basketball and those things are over here. That gets a lot of attention. Soccer's over here, and I'm fine with that. Some of us don't want it to remain that way. We want to pull American soccer out of the shadows. We want to see it grow because our goal is to see our men's national team win a World Cup, win one. Now, none of us are so in denial about our state of things that we think we're going to win in 2026, but that can be a step. You can use 2026 as a launching pad towards 2030 and beyond. So if that's the case, man, we need a good showing. And if we need a good showing, we need a team that knows how to play together and that Pochettino has had time to fix. And if we don't have many windows, then guys can't be taking off tournaments. I'm sorry. I know you're tired. Deal with it.
You're tired. Deal with it. Is that this show's version of shut up and dribble or something like that?
I mean, that's politics, and this is not politics. This is. And look, I do have empathy for these guys that are being asked to play a lot, right? And this Club World Cup thing is pretty ridiculous on that front. Right. There's an article, I think, over The Athletic as well about the number of miles that Inter Miami is going to be traveling this summer and how hard that's going to be on 38-year-old bodies. Christian Pulisic's not 38. He's not 38.
Was it like tens of thousands of miles in like a
Crazy.
13-day span or something like that?
It's insane, right? It's insane. And asked to play. And if Messi doesn't play, people are apoplectic about that. Like, how dare you not play, especially if people are paying thousands of dollars for tickets to games. So, we are asking a lot of these players, but in this case, you are going to have one opportunity in your life to be on the biggest stage in world football in your home country. You should get in as many reps as possible. Practice, practice, practice. And essentially that's what the Gold Cup is. It's sort of a practice tournament for the United States to get ready for 2026.
Just a little fact check. Anthony Robinson, the 20th most minutes in the English Premier League at 29.88. So a ton of miles on that young man's legs. And we shall see what happens in the Gold Cup. And just a conversation we can just kind of tease for another time is, if there is a bad showing, will it become onto the club game and just like the slow grassroots swell of teams spreading across the country be the driver rather than, these flashpoint moments moving forward?
Yeah, look, it can be all those things, right? It can be all those things, Rob. Of course it can.
Indeed. Long ball number 3, Fab 4 for Friday this week. We're fine-tuning this reoccurring segment. We pick 4 games to, maybe cut out some time for this busy weekend. We're going to go around the horn between producer Jenny, Jason, myself, but we need our 4th pick from the chat. So put your suggestions in for the game that you're going to watch. For the chat's pick is going to be the 4th of the Fab 4. So Jenny, in the background, picks as our first Fab 4 game for this Friday, Vancouver versus Los Angeles Football Club.
Wow, did you give some spice to that, Los Angeles? I like that.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Vancouver and LAFC. Obviously, Vancouver is the hottest team in hottest team in North American soccer. That's the way to do that. On their way to a CONCACAF Champions Cup final, leading the league, looking incredible. Do have an American goal scorer in Brian White that has been very fun to watch. It gets the spotlight, right? It gets the day to itself in MLS. It is definitely going to be worth watching. I do think that it's interesting that people are sort of scrambling, and when I say people, I mean like close watchers of the league, right? People like Matt Doyle over there at MLSsoccer.com and other people who are trying to figure out, what is happening in Vancouver? How are they doing this? Like, what is the magic sauce here that has suddenly helped them become, not just the best team in the league this year, but like beyond compare for most.
I actually had a conversation with some Mexican Cruz Azul fans last night, and they were asking me, they didn't even know who the Vancouver Whitecaps were. So I was trying to explain, and they were like, so how are they good? And I'm like, there's an American guy scoring a bunch of goals. There's the son of Berhalter has all of a sudden become a great midfielder, and a couple pieces people didn't really know about are apparently good, or they're playing well at the top.
What about that as a story, by the way? Sebastian Berhalter becoming, the hottest midfielder in Major League Soccer. Everybody's talking about him and getting some heat for a national team call up, right? That is not something I think a lot of us kind of had on our 2025 MLS bingo card. So that is
he went from side note in conspiracy theories about the Reina Berhalter senior saga, and now he's making him a real name for himself. Moving on to Fab Power game 2, Jason, what is your pick for the game that you're going to carve out, or you recommend carving time out for this weekend in North American soccer?
Yeah, I don't have, there's not a ton of obvious candidates outside of Vancouver and LAFC. And so I'm going to go with an emotional pick. All right. I'll admit that this is not on paper a great game. And maybe our man, Nicholas Murray, who is in our chat as always, okay, he's got his game. Maybe we'll consider this one. Louisville City, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, right? We'll do that in a second. But again, emotional. I'm wearing my New Mexico United shirt that Ron Patel gave us because he came on the show and talked about his project there and the things that they're doing in Albuquerque. And shout out to Peter Javasani and everybody that's making it work in New Mexico. New Mexico United hosts Phoenix Rising tomorrow night in the USL Championship. Now, Phoenix Rising is having a bad start to the season. They're in last place in the Western Conference. All right, again, on paper, this is not sort of a marquee matchup. But I like Pamudo Ka. I was hoping that maybe this would be him building towards his MLS managerial career because he's kind of been working his way up through the ranks. A former player in this league, former Vancouver Whitecap, right? He's been growing as a coach, got the opportunity in Phoenix. Let's hope Pamuda Ka can figure it out. But New Mexico United, with if you have not watched our Ron Patel interview, find the video on the YouTube channel because the thumbnail that I used is basically just a picture of the supporters in New Mexico. And man, those people, excuse me, they have fun. They are some of the most interesting supporters in American soccer, and maybe we're not giving them enough love. So that game's going down at Rio Grande Credit Union Field at Isotopes Park tomorrow night. There's my choice.
My pick for my Fab Four pick of the week has been stolen in the chat. You pointed out there's not too many marquee matchups. I'm kind of interested to how some teams bounce back from results midweek, but JB 100% took my pick. Bit of a troll pick, the toilet bowl. Like, how bad does it get for either of these? Toronto hosting DC United. I've seen a lot of kind of social media clips of of CSN, like the Toronto soccer coverage, and some of the people affiliated with Toronto just like can't believe what they're watching.
They can't do it.
It's just like they have okay, for context, Toronto, I think between these two teams, both have played 11, so in 22 matches these two teams have only accumulated 4 wins. Toronto with 1, DC with 3. And so, like, can Toronto get their second win at their 12th attempt this weekend against a DC United team that's not lighting the lamp, so to speak?
Are we talking sack race kind of vibes right now with this one? I mean, is that I like Troy Lesesne a lot. I've talked to him several times on the radio. I really enjoy talking to him, and I think he's a good guy, and he seems to be a pretty smart soccer coach, but it's not working now. And there have been some rumors about DC United trying to be more aggressive out there. Who knows what their next move is going to be? Are they going to try to go big name rather than maybe be smart about building? They've sold some of their young players. Right? DC United fans are also very sour about the fact that they've sent some players along who are now doing things in other places, and they didn't get a ton back, and they don't seem to be committed to giving those players the opportunity to grow within their system. And then Toronto, I mean, Toronto's just, it's a mess. And Robin Fraser is another guy who did really well in Colorado until his time ran out there, and you would hope that he would find a way to get himself back into the picture of succeeding in MLS, and it just has not happened.
There's like 2 players in the handful of games of Toronto that I've watched. There's about 2 players that I've liked. I mean, in Bernadeschi, he scored that one really nice goal against Inter Miami, but he's obviously a high quality player, but that was, I think, his only goal so far. And then they have a fullback. I'll have to pull up his name. That's really been, I think it's Petretta. No, it's Corbineau is the other player that I like on that side. But seeing the effort levels from like Insigne, they froze him out, they brought him back. Obviously, it's just, there's so many levels of wrong going on there, and so many, like, you just watch a team that is just not a team that doesn't. It's given up already. It's give up vibes here in the first third of the season.
That usually costs managers their jobs. Is all I'm gonna say to that.
Yeah, it's probably one of those, like, hate to see you go, but something has to happen. And who's the easiest person to get rid of in any sports team?
It's the coach. Yep, absolutely. All right.
How many we got? So we've got 3 out of our Fab 4. So now chat pick for 4th pick of the weekend. We've got quite a few suggestions. Ian Webb, he's throwing Tampa Bay versus Charleston out there. There has been a lot of people griping about DC United in the chat. Do you see any other ones? Nicholas Murray, who did he have? New Mexico versus Phoenix Rising. That might be the one.
Well, that's the one I picked because of the emotional pick, but also Nicholas Murray is pointing out this is a very good rivalry. I mean, this is a Southwest rivalry Obviously there's no other New Mexico team. There's no other Arizona team in the same division as Phoenix Rising. So this is a rivalry matchup. I don't think they're too far apart. I always get lost on how far apart things are in the western part of the United States of America because I don't live there and I forget how big
that's one of the
is.
that's one of the corrections right there.
Don't say it. We'll get to it. But yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think he also mentioned a match with that's on that maybe it's on television. Is this the one he was talking about? Yeah, CBS Sports Golazo has Louisville City and Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and here it is. Louisville City can tie a championship record with a win that will be 13 straight at home in the regular season. So that is interesting for Danny Cruz and company.
So that is the Fab Four of the North American soccer calendar here from Morning Kick Around. Thanks for throwing your suggestions in the chat, and hopefully everyone is able to carve out some time and watch some footy. We are driving towards adding some super chats and some memberships. I don't know if I've seen any come through, so if you guys want some bonus content, you got to start subscribing and signing up for these memberships. It's right there. YouTube makes it pretty easy. Also, if you haven't done so already, you can follow us on the social media, Kickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You're talking about procrastinating. We got to get our library of ProRail manifestos from our email organized there, Jason. We got to get on that. And then also part of the memberships we didn't even acknowledge, the Discord. That's been activated recently. So one of the benefits of becoming a Morning Kick Around YouTube channel member, early access to videos, priority chatting, and a Discord channel. So Morning Kick Around, you can have it in your pocket and connect. There's already been a couple friendships made in the Discord, it seemed like. So join, subscribe, become a member. And then if you like podcast format, do that as well. Search Morning Kick Around to get Morning Kick Around as a podcast. All right. We're halfway through Friday's show. We are going to catch our breath and come right back with our hot topic. Who would be the best American soccer Pope candidate? Here on Morning Kick Around. The hottest of topics here on Morning Kick Around. It's not just that store at the mall. It's a sizzler here on Friday. There was some news. There was a Pope selected this week after much debate, but the real debate within our confines, our conclave, if you will, who would be the best American candidate to be the soccer Pope?
Right.
You got a few people. We got to conclave it up. There's some selections here.
I got some thoughts. I got some candidates. We'll go through this. There's one obvious one that we'll probably start with. But what I was going to say is that, we understand, right? This is very much like the real church that has now picked an American. We don't know this is a long shot. Like, we understand that an American is unlikely to be selected soccer Pope, right?
Yeah.
Probably going to be an Italian. Probably
would it be as likely as the real Pope being American, or even probably even bigger?
More unlikely is my thought, right? Because you would, my brain immediately went to Alex Ferguson as potentially a soccer Pope candidate. You could throw, if you're talking about great living players, Dino Zoff, who's Italian, it could be a Pope, soccer Pope candidate.
I can definitely see the Inzaghi's being Cardinals.
Sure. Okay, sure. That's one. Paolo Maldini could be in that mix, of course. Arsene Wenger. Is he a soccer? He might be a controversial choice with some of his philosophies about the game these days, right? So he might not be your favorite idea of a soccer Pope. But if we're an American soccer show. This is an American thing. We call it soccer over here. It's not. We're a soccer Pope, not football Pope. And so we need to know who our candidates might be for this conclave. Now, again, I'm going to throw up the obvious candidate. All right. This is the obvious candidate.
You didn't tell me about this one.
Eddie Pope is the obvious candidate. And here is Nicholas Murray, Pope Edward the 23rd. That's who we might want to throw up. And look, obviously he's got the countenance. Think about Eddie Pope is he's one of the just calmest, coolest characters I've ever seen. I don't think he loves the spotlight. Eddie Pope. He's working with Carolina Core down there in Carolina these days, part of that club. So, but obviously his name is Pope. He's got to be on our list for Soccer Pope, right?
Fair enough. And when you asked me for my list, that didn't even come across my radar. So good shout here.
I mean, yeah, I think we all kind of forgot. I put up on Blue Sky that we were going to pick a Soccer Pope, and I got people saying, wait, hold on. What about the guy whose actual name is Pope? Like, why wouldn't you have him as Soccer Pope? All right, but if we're going to move on from Eddie, and obviously, again, I actually think he is a legitimate candidate for the kind of
beyond the namesake. He's
beyond having the right name. He is absolutely a candidate. But I wanted to center him before we move on to these gentlemen who could be candidates for Soccer Pope. We've got Peter Vermees. Now, he's not currently working. He got fired by Sporting Kansas City.
He's available. He's available to take on a new role.
He's got the time. Now, he is more of a hardliner kind of figure within the soccer church that we have. How far are we taking this? So Peter Vermees, maybe more stick than carrot when it comes to how he pushes his papacy forward. Bob Bradley, maybe in the same vein as a Peter Vermees. Like if we're gonna call these, when you talk about the real election of a pope, there was lots of like, are they gonna pick a more conservative pope? Are they gonna pick a more liberal pope? Even though that spectrum is very different than our ideas of conservatism and liberalism, still there is that range within the College of Cardinals. And
so now that we're onto the second of these candidates you have on screen, I would say Bob Bradley would be more open to robust debate in a public setting than Vermees would be.
That might be true. Okay, but still very much a serious figure, right? We're not talking about a soft-spoken pope with a Bob Bradley. He's from New Jersey, goddammit. Like he's gonna bring some energy to the papacy. Bruce Arena also maybe in that vein. Obviously a massive figure within American soccer. And if we're talking about just in terms of resume, maybe who jumps off the page most, it's probably Bruce, right? It's probably, I mean, in terms of being purely raised within the American soccer sphere, because I've got a candidate down at the bottom that is maybe a compromise candidate, a little bit of an old world influence on his philosophy. Sunil Gulati. Now that was your idea.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember a couple of popes ago, there was kind of like an Emperor Palpatine sort of a vibe to him. And, Sunil Gulati, the guy in the background, pulling the strings left and right. And I think that he's legitimate. If we're getting like a full spectrum of candidates, I think he's worth consideration in this conclave of ours.
Yeah, okay. I mean, he's impossible to ignore as a figure within the game in America. But I do think he's left behind him a wake of enemies that might make it difficult for him to be elected by the Cardinals. And by the way, we're not identifying the Cardinals. There's 133 of them in real life. We don't have time to pick the 133 Cardinals of the American Soccer Church. We're not doing that. Jurgen Klinsmann, Rob, that's the one I kind of surprised you with as well. I don't think we talked about him.
So I noticed a couple that I don't know if there's a second page of these faces, but there was a kind of an owner figure like the Anschutz face, but you swapped them out for Klinsmann.
I did. I think the thing about Anschutz is he's a little bit reclusive, and yes, we didn't know a lot about the real Pope who was elected. He wasn't a public figure the way that some past popes have been in terms of his influence on the church. And maybe that's why he was a compromise candidate. But Anschutz, Philip Anschutz, as an idea, is interesting. Again, he sort of is the patron saint of American soccer on some level, a living character, because Lamar Hunt could probably also get that label. But of course, he has passed. At this point, Phil Anschutz is 85 years old. I don't know that we want to elect a pope who might not be with us for very long. Like, we want a pope who's got skin in the game in terms of the future. Right? Is that a fair way to look at this? I think we don't want a soccer pope who's going to be like, I'm leaving this mortal coil very soon, and I don't really care what happens when I'm gone. So I think that's why I didn't put Phil Anschutz. Again, Jurgen Klinsmann.
What would be like? How would you characterize Jurgen Klinsmann? I think he's a bit. what would you call it? I'm losing my word.
I mean,
But
he's a little bit new agey in terms of his some of his ideas. So we've seen that come to the fore when he was head coach of the U.S. men's national team, and he had the guy who could tear phone books in half come and speak to the team. That kind of stuff. Motivational ideas that are maybe a little off the wall, a little out there. Like, what kind of influence would he have? You could argue that Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, Jurgen Klinsmann have already been sort of our American soccer cardinal, at least like the representative of North America, American soccer in terms of the Church of Soccer, because they've been head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Maybe they've already had their time, and we need to
similar
move
to
on.
Galati, has Klinsmann left too many enemies in his wake?
It's possible, absolutely possible, that he would not get enough support, even from the American constituency, rather. Landon Donovan. Now, look, greatest American soccer player. That's maybe a debate some people want to have, but he certainly is a massive figure. And then Tony Meola, who I think really could be a bridge builder if we got him elected as soccer pope. Robert.
Yeah, he's got the firm but fair energy. He's respected on multiple levels. He's genuinely one of the most famous, homegrown American figures. And he had some actual mainstream stardom. He was a pop culture figure for a while, but very measured. He seems like he has firm beliefs in what he believes in, but is also willing to listen to others. I think that I think you might have saved the best for last year.
A guy who is in his career now, he's obviously very focused on the broadcasting side of things these days with Call It What You Want and CBS and the games he calls. But Tony Meola is a guy who's been very invested in the young players of America. And I think I want that in a soccer pope. I want a pope who is very much about the next generation. Like, if we don't pass those things along, if we're not being conscious of growing some soccer players and a new generation, then everything shuts down, and there is no more church, I guess, if we're doing this analogy. And here we go. All right, so this one I left out.
You led our discussion about this off cam about who's going to be the first one to bring up the double deuce.
Yeah, and the Mike Thomas member, shout out to Mike. By the way, we got a goal going on. We mentioned that earlier. I just kind of got it started. Super chat can lead to a corrections extra time on today's show if you hit us up there. Deacon Deuce. So this is a reference, man. I got to explain this thing. This is a best soccer show cultural reference Mike Thomas is bringing to the table here. A long time supporter of the best soccer show, Mike Thomas. Yeah, once upon a time, Jared Dubois did a character, a bit, where he was Deacon Deuce, almost like a Southern Baptist preacher in the form of Clint Dempsey. So that's a while ago, Mike. Wow, what a reference. So there you go.
Deep cut. So from the chat. So Kat, what's the consensus of the candidates we've put out there? I mean, there's been a couple people shouting out Alexi Lalas or Winalda. She get in the mix. The divisive figures. I'll point that out. I work with one of those guys on a daily basis, but you have to acknowledge that not everybody is on board sometimes with the rhetoric used by Alexi or Eric, and oftentimes they're on opposite sides, so they kind of would be maybe two guys who would be splitting votes in that way, because you'd have one side of the spectrum maybe going for Alexi and another one going for Eric. Black smoke. Yeah, we don't have any white smoke. I think it's pretty clear that we have not reached a consensus with our voting, Robert. We do not have a soccer pope. Not yet. Yeah. Have your say in the chat, but good topic there, Jason. Who will be the best American candidate for soccer pope? My money's on Meola for the record, but we'll see how the conversation develops after this video goes up.
Can I give a slight disclaimer here, just in case? And nobody in this chat has responded negatively to any of this, and that's good. I'm glad. Thank you very much for taking it in the spirit.
For having fun. Yeah,
this is not sacrilegious, or at least I don't think it is. In fact, my family is Catholic and we go to mass every Sunday, so I would be in big trouble if this was something that was actually untoward on the religious front. So it just soccer pope, it's a fun idea.
Member drive. We got to get members, super chats, subscribers. Help Morning Kickaround become one of the conversation centers for American soccer. We've gotten a nice little groundswell, and the last few months have been great for growth. And but we want to keep on kicking on. There's like probably a 10xer we want to get to probably by the time end of the year. What we want to get past 10K subscribers by 2026, right?
Absolutely. That's the goal, right? We're going to celebrate the World Cup arriving in America by going big with our numbers. I think we can get there.
So hit those buttons, subscribe, and do whatever you can. Help out however you can. But viewership is awesome regardless. Follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, and look us up on your favorite podcast platform. Morning Kickaround is all you got to search, and you can take us in podcast format. All right, one more segment to go this week. Let's take a breather and come right back with our big question of the day here on Morning Kickaround. Big question of the day here on Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. He's Jason. 2025 seems like kind of an anomaly year. A lot of shakeup of winners across the major competitions in world soccer. PSG, it might win their first championship. First year in over 20 years. There's no Premier League, German, or Spanish team in the Champions League final. Newcastle won their first major title. Liverpool changed the paradigm of the leadership table of the best team or most successful teams in England. Barca usurped Real Madrid's dynasty this year, out-achieving them in the league and the Champions League. Harry Kane is winning a trophy in 2025. Closer to home, Vancouver Whitecaps might win their first CONCACAF Continental Trophy and major trophy. Cruz Azul looking for their first one in over 10 years. And in a year where anything seems possible, which Major League Soccer team is most likely to win their first major title?
Well, okay. Again, caveat being that Vancouver looks like they are candidates to win at least one major trophy this season. And they are, and we're not, no offense to the Canadian Championship. We're kind of leaving that aside. They have won that. But we're obviously to get into the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But we're talking about a continental title, we're talking about MLS Cup, and we're talking about the Supporter Shield, right? Those are the three things that as a North American top division team, those are the three things that we count as major trophies. This is a relatively, in terms of like, can you win something? Meaning, do you look the part, and do you not have a major trophy in your history? Rob, who are our candidates here? Because those two, that Venn diagram is our big question.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new teams, so there's quite a few candidates on this list. Let me bring up the full rundown of the teams. So Cincinnati, Charlotte, Nashville, and then
you're going
Red
through
Bull.
Well, Red Bull's got Supporter Shield. We're not going to count Red Bulls in this conversation because they got Supporter Shields. They have not won an MLS Cup, but they have been the top team in the regular season standings, and we're going to count that as a major trophy.
Montreal,
for this conversation. But Montreal's bad. This is my point. That they're not a candidate to win anything because they're bad, and they're not going to get better enough over the course of this season to be in play for a major trophy, right? You're just looking down the Eastern Conference table and going, well, they don't have a trophy, and they don't have a trophy.
Are you questioning my methods here, Jason?
No, I'm not questioning your methods. I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, so outside, okay, you've got, so for example, the Revs, who are ninth, have pulled themselves into ninth place in the Eastern Conference. And I definitely think that, there's been some job saving Caleb Porter has done recently. They could be, by virtue of the 9-team playoff, they could, but except, again, this is what I'm saying. The Revs have a shield. They have a Supporter Shield. They are not part of this conversation. And the same goes for the Philadelphia Union. who have a supporter shield, but not an MLS Cup trophy. Right. So, and again, so out west, the Caps clearly are the number one candidate for this in the Western Conference, because they haven't ever won that. They haven't ever won an MLS Cup title or a supporter shield. You've also have out there Minnesota United.
Yeah, that was the next team that I was going to pick out there.
Yeah,
Minnesota United, and then obviously the new teams too.
Yeah, San Diego, who has had a good start but kind of sputtered. They are coming off of a win in their last game against Dallas, but how good are they? Are they capable of this? Does Orlando have a trophy? They have a U.S. Open Cup.
They do.
Is what they've got. I don't know that we're again sort of if we're not going to consider the Canadian Championship for Vancouver, I kind of want to leave the U.S. Open Cup out of this. As much as I respect that tournament, I do think that Orlando City is a team that has kind of flirted with this idea of being an MLS Cup contender and a Supporter Shield contender in the past. I don't think they're a Supporter Shield contender this year, right? We are looking at teams that have already won stuff: Columbus, Philadelphia, Cincinnati might be the one.
Yeah. I'd say in the East, Cincinnati most likely, and in the West, there's probably more candidates. But yeah, Vancouver, Minnesota on that side. So there's at least 3 that we could highlight here.
They wanted my mistake. Cincinnati has a supporter shield. They won that 2 years ago. So
egg on our face. There's so many teams.
Wait a second. So Cincinnati has a supporter shield. So again, like this is what makes MLS interesting. Right? You tried to claim that Liverpool changed the paradigm in the Premier League. They're still Liverpool. They're still Liverpool. Stop that.
Yeah, but it was like when obviously not quite as global touching as this, but when Messi won the World Cup, the Messi-Ronaldo conversation changed forever. Just like my entire life, or not entire life, but since United usurped the 18 championships that Liverpool had, Manchester United was the most successful team, and now Liverpool win their 20th Division I title. They change the paradigm there.
I got you. Okay, all right, and yeah, I mean, there's something to that, despite them being a historically very successful team.
Yeah,
there isn't, and this is the thing. Like in Major League Soccer, you are taking great risk if you attempt to actually predict and try to be right about what's going to happen in any given season, right? Because there's going to be surprises. There's going to be good teams who suddenly aren't good anymore and bad teams who are now in the mix, and not bad teams or mediocre teams. Vancouver's an example of that. They go from mediocre to stellar somehow in one season, one off season. Wow. That is wow. But there isn't this way to sort of like frame up Major League Soccer and say, well, these are the clubs that are elite in a consistent year to year over multiple years kind of way, right? When Messi and company leave Inter Miami, do we expect them to be as good as they are now? No. Now maybe they can find a way to soften the blow of those players leaving and still be competitive. But look at the LA Galaxy this season, right?
The wheels can come off fast. And I think of the teams that are competing for the major trophies this year, I think Miami's the one that teeters with it falling apart the most out of the rest of the field that are at the top of the pack. So I think that if we're talking strictly MLS Cup, like, making the playoffs and having the chance, how do you weigh Charlotte and Nashville's chances of getting a title?
I think both of them have proven to be competent so far. I mean, again, 1/3 of the way through the regular season, still a ton of soccer to play. They are both pretty solidly plus in terms of goal difference, which I think is, you can
good indicator.
It's sort of like an inverse Tottenham, where sometimes you have a team that's they're in 3rd place in the conference, but they're -2. Wait, what? How does that work? It doesn't make any sense. Or they're and again, I know XG can feed into this as well. Who's sort of lining up their goals match the chances that they're creating, for lack of a better way of describing XG. They're good chances. Well, then that means you can sort of trust where they are in the standings. You can trust the results and say that's a good team. Some teams overperform their XG, and you kind of know the bottom can fall out. Now, sometimes teams are able to make that work over the course of a full regular season. I think that has happened. Austin a couple of years ago is a good example of that, but it's really hard to maintain that. So I think, again, whether or not you buy into goal difference as an indicator or XG as an indicator and that kind of thing, or XG difference as an indicator, there are teams that we can say we think they're pretty good, but this is Major League Soccer. And again, so look at the overall standings right now. The Whitecaps. Okay, Columbus, a team we expect to be good right now. I talked to Max Arfsted on the radio yesterday, and I asked him, like, hey, you guys have this thing now where everybody just expects you to be good. Like you've been put into the elite category of Major League Soccer clubs. So now there's some pressure there. And he's like, well, we know each other. We play well together. Coach makes it easy. Those things are a good recipe. Philly is a surprise. I mean, as much as they've been a contender, they're a surprise at this level this year. We just talked about Cincinnati, Supporter Shield winner in the past. Could they be an MLS Cup team? Inter Miami, Supporter Shield winner, no MLS Cup. Expect them to be hanging around, depending on how much those miles in the Club World Cup and the league affect the old guys. Charlotte, yes. Contender. Charlotte, a candidate to win a major trophy. Absolutely. Are they most likely? That's a good question. I might put Minnesota above Charlotte right now, but it's close. I mean, those teams they've won the same number of points so far in the regular season with different schedules as well.
It'd be interesting to see a new team win. Like I said, the kind of the premise of the segment is there's kind of a lot of open competition, a lot of different new teams, and kind of some interesting teams getting success. Which fan base do you think would get like the shot in the arm by getting that title? Like, what would really put a club over the top to get to a next level with their fan base?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking about clubs that do not have a major trophy, and again, MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, and obviously only one team has won a continental trophy in recent memory, and they also have MLS Cups and Supporter Shield, so Seattle's out of this conversation. If we're talking about a team that hasn't won a major trophy yet and kind of like needs that, Charlotte's still riding a wave of new club enthusiasm. They don't need it, right? They don't need it to push them forward and get people back to be paying attention. I think Minnesota United has a very strong fan base. I haven't checked their attendance numbers recently, but they seem to fill up that joint in St. Paul, so I don't know that they need that. Again, San Diego, new club, lots of enthusiasm. Nashville, maybe there was the end of the Gary Smith era. Things started to fade a bit. I don't know if that's a fair way of describing what's going on in Nashville. They've got a 30,000 seat stadium, so like
They're doing pretty well. Like that's actually a low key success story. Like the expansion of American soccer and MLS in general, we kind of glazed over the fact that like, Nashville, Tennessee has some of the biggest crowds in American soccer, which is just wild. But as you were talking it out, I think that Minnesota United, they've had such incremental gains. Obviously, they started as a USL team, and in their transition to life in Major League Soccer was a rough one. And they've almost just like incrementally, like slowly, year after year, just like crept up and found like mild success, but not ultimate success. I almost think that it would be nice for Minnesota because they seem like they have a very devout supporters culture. And, who would have thought 10, 15 years ago, Minnesota would be a hub of, top professional soccer. I would like it for them.
I don't think there's so the moribund teams are the teams that have some history,
right?
And they're just not good now. That's Chicago.
That's a good conversation to have. It's like the bottom feeders are already the teams that they've won, a couple decades ago.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about DC United, moribund, Chicago Fire, those teams, FC Dallas to a certain extent. Although again, it's really tough to know FC Dallas because they've cut their capacity down to almost nothing while they renovate their stadium. I was going to say actually Orlando's an interesting one. I think they still do okay attendance wise. Orlando City, I think they're middle of the pack. I mean, that stadium holds 25, is that right? And they I see they're averaging 20. Sometimes you have to look at those numbers more closely because
it's more like 15 or 16.
Well, because like, for example, Chicago is 9th in attendance so far with 29,000 average. They're not getting that every game. Obviously the Chicago Fire aren't drawing 29. They probably had one. They had one big game. I don't know.
The Messi game. They had a 60.
Yeah. And that brings up the average, but in terms of like what their median kind of is, It's not, it's not that. So those teams need it more than even the teams that haven't won any trophy whatsoever, because again, generally speaking, those are newer clubs or they have a wave of enthusiasm. But Orlando's been around for a while and they have not won a major league trophy, a supporter shield, or an MLS Cup title. And I think they've been close enough that there might be some frustration there in Orlando. So I think I might make you say Minnesota, I say Orlando.
I think those are decent shouts. And Nicholas Murray giving us a little bit of context about Nashville, talking about they went from fan known NPSL to MLS over the course of a decade. And I guess I didn't know that connection. Is that still the same ownership group, or is it kind of like based on the success of this NPSL team they created?
There's a through line. Obviously, they didn't have the same owners and all that. I mean, as you said, fan owned. There's a through line. I mean, what he's saying, what I think Nicholas Murray is saying is that they went from a grassroots small club kind of thing to getting enough enthusiasm around the sport in Nashville in the area that the league could not deny that Nashville should be a place for an MLS team. And again, you don't have to love MLS expansion to be appreciating that story and what the fans, what the soccer people of Nashville have done, which is yeah. And again, it's like, yeah, I'm not a Pokemon. I'm too old for Pokemon, but does that like a Pokemon evolution of soccer teams? Is kind of like that, Rob? You do you know Pokemon? I'm not.
I've learned with having children, I've had to learn them, but there's like 10,000 of them. So, it's, I guess I know thousands of soccer player names and my kids know thousands of Pokemon names.
That's right. We could name some guys. In fact, just because I know a couple people in this chat might appreciate it. We were talking about Soccer Pope and Robert made, we were just talking out the idea and he said, well, who's the most devout American soccer? Like, who's got that kind of, there's a lot of them, first of all, and they're more than welcome to their faith and all of that. But I suddenly remembered Wells Thompson. And so some people in this chat are going to go, oh yeah, that's a name I haven't thought about in a long time. Wells Thompson. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this. We can go on.
I think that's our Friday kicked. So if you're watching this and you haven't clicked the subscribe button for Morning Kick Around, do it now. Become part of this American conversation, American soccer conversation. And the more subscribers there are, the more tools and things that become available to us through YouTube. So it really is kind of an avalanche. We've started the snowball. It's rolling down the hill. And the more subscribers we get, the bigger our figurative soccer ball goes. But just hit the subscribe button. I will admit I was a terrible subscriber until we started getting serious about doing this show. I've watched channels for years and years and didn't hit the button, and it really doesn't cost anything. It doesn't really fill up I was scared of like it filling up the spam bucket or anything like that in my email. It doesn't do that. You just hit subscribe. And it means a lot to the creators. And hit subscribe for more and Kick Around.
Yeah, if you subscribe, if you like the videos, we pop up on people's feeds who do not know we exist, and that's kind of important to us growing this thing because there is almost so much yelling we can do into the soccer space and the void and that kind of stuff. Again, there are other places for us to be. We've got the Discord. We are available as a podcast. You can help us out that way. You can follow M Kick Around on all the socials, as has been mentioned many times.
Yeah.
Davis JSN is no, that's not right. Davis Jason is my handle over on Blue Sky. Actually, write out both names, Davis and Jason. And you'll find me on Blue Sky talking about whatever's on my mind. Yeah.
All right, guys. I think next week we'll have to push hard for the new memberships, try to get those goals hit so we can create some bonus content for members. So we will push that again next week. We will be back live on Monday morning, 9:30 Eastern, but we'll chop up the videos as per normal. Until we see you all next time, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.